Alright, I'd like to do a quick video on my new JD's Garage THC edition. This is what it looks like. Actually, I still have my plastic cover on it. There's the voltage divider attached into the back of the plasma cutter. And that comes around and attaches into the torch height controller, as well as the switch controller attaches in here. And then all these wires over here on the end attach into the I'm sorry, this looks like a nest, but I just had to do everything. So into here, most of it attaches into the Z driver, and the rest of it attaches into the Arduino itself. I did have to move some wires that were in here already going to the Z driver out to put these in, so there's a little bit of that was a bit confusing, but I kind of figured it out after a bit. The negative ground also connected to my relay, so I had to figure out a way to combine those two grounds to the ground on the Arduino. So I figured all that out. We got that going. In fact, is it? Oh, yeah, it's right there. So anyways, that's all in. Let's make sure it didn't pop out on me. I had to run the wire through the top for now, which I don't like doing that. I got two wires going through the top. One's for my wireless in the garage, and because my other USB ports died on this, but this one had to run through the top because most of my wires currently run through these jacks that I added in the back, but I'll need to add another spot for another jack for this to come through, so I'll have to splice it and put a jack. And there are 6 wires that have to go into the inner components from the THC controller, our torch height controller, to the Arduino and the Z driver. There are 6 wires that have to come inside, so I used a standard wires that I've been using to control all my motors and everything, which has 4 wires in it, and I had to run an additional 2 wires to accomplish that. So when I do put it through the back of here, back panel of this, and drill that hole out the rest of the way and put it through there, I will most likely get a 6-wire cable that's all encased in one and run it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I did 1 cut just to test and see if I got it connected right. I did 2 cuts. I did a circle flat to make sure it was still cutting normal, and it did. You couldn't even tell I had a torch height controller hooked up. It just cut normal for that circle. And then I took and raised up the one side a 1/2 inch, and the other side I held down with a nice big hunk of brass so that it was kind of arched up. I'll show it from the side a little bit, arched up. Wasn't that much, just a little bit. And it cut this square out, which, you know, it is a little warped because of the heat as it was cutting. But it was hard to tell, but it did look like it stayed right above the metal. Now, you know, there's a lot of tweaking for different types of metal and everything, but in all honesty, the first try, default settings seemed like it worked perfect for this metal. Didn't need to change anything. I had my plasma cutter set at 50 psi and 35 amps, and I don't know what tip I have in there right now. I think I have the right tip in there because I was cutting this metal last time, and I had just put a new tip in to cut some of this metal a few weeks ago over here without the torch height controller. So I think I had the right tip in there for that, the smaller tip. And so now I want to do something a little more interesting. I want to try and do some of the corrugated metal. The torch height controller, if fully functioning properly, should be able to go up and down on these bumps. But that's a big ask. I mean, that's like huge ask because it's going to have to go through them at every angle as it goes around. So we're going to try it, see what happens. We may need to do some tweaking on the settings in the torch height controller, but we're going to play with it and see if I can get there. And that was always my hope, was that I could use it for that. And a little bit of the adjustment of my arm, like front to back. I think I finally got that pretty daggone level, but then I had a little bit of adjustment left to right that I needed to adjust. And I actually still have these bars in back here for all the adjustment that I've done previously. And I really would like to get those out of there and let that side go back down where it belongs and stay down below the arm back here. It doesn't hit right now. I got it pretty tight up against this edge and I'm fine. It's not rubbing. It's actually very level front to back right now, my front to back. And side to side, it's off about 1/4 inch from the entire edge to the entire edge. I'm not sure if I want to level it anymore. I shouldn't need to, in theory, because the torch height controller should control all that. So anyways, I want to try and do one more test on this just to make sure that I wasn't like, you know, experimenting and I just got lucky and it pushed it down or something. Seems like it didn't. Maybe I'll put something a little bigger in there and let it try and do some, a little more than 1/2 inch, maybe an inch, I don't know. And then go over to the corrugated and try and cut something out on the corrugated and see how it does there. So I'm not going to throw anything really big. My real intent was something that was big that covered the whole table. When cutting the outlines, I really lost height on the metal because it would, well, even without this in here, you can see this metal really warps. This thinner metal really warps when it gets hot. And in theory, the torch height controller, that is where it works best. When the metal's changing height, it can adjust with it because the arc adjusts and then the motor adjusts based on the arc. So I don't have any water in here right now, so I can't cut too much because it blows dust everywhere. I took it out over the winter and I just never had put it back in. I'm kind of tired of the boric acid, no, borax, I'm sorry, borax. It throws white dust everywhere, and that's what all this white dust is on here. I cleaned up the top 2 parts, but I've never gone back and cleaned all the bottom off. I definitely need to put the faceplate on this so I'm not splashing water in here. But anyways, let's give it a try. Alright, I've made a sign. It's a ChilliChump sign. YouTube star that I've been following since I started making growing chili plants. So I thought I'd try something crazy and see if I can make a sign with his logo. Here's a flat sheet, a little bit of buckle to it, not much, but we'll see how that does with the torch height controller. And then we'll try to come back, if it works flat, we'll try to come back and do it with the corrugated next. And see how the torch height controller does on that. But we need to make sure that the design works flat first. Got some pretty small lettering in here, and I'm just not sure it's going to work even flat. So we're going to do that. I'll try to video some of it, and then we'll come back if it works, and we'll try to put the corrugated down and see how it can move around on that with the torch height controller and if it crashes or whatnot. All right, we'll get it started here. The ChilliChump sign turned out pretty good on flat, and now we're going to try the corrugated. This is going to be tough because it was jumping up and down a little bit. I feel like it was more than 1 millimeter, so we're going to see how it does. This could be a fail. I'm not sure if I should go this way or turn it and go the other way, but I'm going to try this way first. I don't know. It's tough. Might be too much. Oh yeah, we're going to make some adjustments for sure. My Z height wasn't enough. Not going back up high enough. Maybe too soft. Well, that one didn't get. Alright. I stopped the job. It moved the whole thing that was downside of it. My Z height wasn't high enough, and when it was traveling around, it was grabbing, so I wasn't getting up high enough. I don't know if that's something I can set in the software or not, but it just wasn't traveling. I mean, it was working pretty good for some of it, but it also failed right here. It didn't ignite, I should say. This one I think worked. Yeah, it worked, but it's moving it. So, and the A, when it came up out of it to go to the next one, it didn't come all the way up, which is not the torch height controller. That's my safety Z height, which I need to adjust in the software, I believe. So I'm gonna try again, and well, I lost that much of my metal, so I'll try moving up more. I'll set it up again and try again. Alright, we changed the settings, and we're gonna try again. We slowed it down, and we made the safety height a little higher, and I kind of bent these tabs down a little bit as well. Not a lot better. That's tough. Might be too much. It is ironically working, but it's just not working at, top notch. So let it run until it messes up. The safety height's making a big difference. It's getting hot. I was sticking on the other. What if I kick it now? See if I can give you a better picture. No, that's not going to work. I was just looking for another set of lenses to put over the camera. You can make it all out. I'm thinking my tip might need to be replaced, because it's working. It's definitely working. I need to draw a little mark on my motor so you guys can see it turning.
Yeah, my 12 is blowing too much of a hole, too much of a curve. Need to adjust my 12. Look how thick that curve is. Too big. That's my setting. So taking the voltage down just a hair. I turned it down to 35 instead of 40. I think I can even go a little lower. It's pretty thin metal. And that's cool going up and down, so see if I can get it from the side a little better. I hold my phone really still. Not sure you can see that. But it is going up and down. I need to grab my tweezers 1 second. I gotta be ready to grab pieces. Well, that was horrible. Well, you can see it's having a little bit of issues there. What are we reading over here? Oh, the contrast is too hard, you can't read it. This is a tough one, big letter. Alright, that's it. We'll get a picture when it comes out.
Alright, here's what we have. We did 2 of them. One flat and one corrugated using the torch height controller. You could see that the torch height controller wasn't able to keep up with the level of bumps here real well. It did a good, I mean, it actually cut it perfectly. I shouldn't say it couldn't keep up, but it was squeezing up and down, and I saw up top it was touching a little bit, and then in the very bottoms you'd have a 1 millimeter gap for the arc, and then it had to work its way back up. So it did go up and down, but not as fast as these bumps as it was going. I'm going 1600 millimeters a second. 600 millimeters a second. I think that's the second speed. I slowed it down. I was doing 2400 when I first tried it, when I had errors. I had a few mishaps. So here, where I think what was happening with some of this is my tip probably needs to be replaced, and it was actually sticking, and as it would pull away, the tip had kind of melted to it, meaning that the tip was touching the metal on these upper points right here. So interestingly enough, that was the worst spot, was right there in the O when it was trying to pull away from that. Sorry, compressor. And over here it did really well. Didn't need any assistance. Although I did see it going up and down a little bit because this metal is not perfectly flat either. So it did much better with this non-corrugated metal going up and down with the shifting of the metal height, because it was bowing as it got hot. This is really, really thin metal. Really thin metal. And you can see the bow in it. It was following this bow no problem at all. This one, it was following pretty well. Didn't bow as much. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to yell if it was yelling at you guys. But in the end, I think pretty good quality either way you look at it. So the signs are done. And, you know, I used the torch height controller on both of them. However, I don't know that it did anything much on the first flat one. It actually did. I shouldn't say that. The metal was warping pretty bad on that first one. As I was cutting it, you can kind of see there's a little bit of warp in it. And it adjusted pretty well. So that's awesome. And in the second one, I really put it to the challenge. And this is only my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th cut. So, and no modifications to the torch height controller settings at all. I'm just going with the default settings. So, but I wanted to give a brief, what do I think? First off, the JD Garage plasma cutter, simply amazing. I was able to take a picture on a website, and that's ChilliChump's website. It might be chillichump.com, I'm not sure, of his website. I'm only doing this because I'm growing chilies this year, and I'm growing a lot of them. And I've been watching this guy's videos, ChilliChump, and I love him. He's awesome. He's fun to watch. He's from the UK. Really cool guy. Anyways, but in order to get, you know, a comparison, I needed same logo. So I created this logo. I didn't create the logo. I'm sorry. I stole the logo, made it work with CNC, because, you know, like the D would have lost the center and the P would have lost the center. So I had to modify it. Seed to sauce is much smaller on this logo, and I had to expand it a little bit. So this is about 24 inches across, and they're exactly the same logo. I didn't change. Well, I did change something on the G code. So I noticed that on the first one, I started to cut this in seed to sauce. Every time the torch height would raise up, it would only raise up 10 millimeters. And you set that in your G code. What's your safe distance for travel? And that's nothing to do with the torch height controller, obviously, because the torch height controller doesn't care what your safe distance for travel is. That's in your G code, or your program that's setting that, your CAM software, I guess it's called. Yeah, CAD? I think it's CAM. I think it's CAD. I don't know. And anyways, I went in there and changed that from 10 millimeters to 20. And that makes sense. This was, you know, there were times when this thing was warping and it was more than 10 millimeters difference from front to back. And just the height of the corrugated metal has some height difference. So I changed it to 20. And that's when it travels between one letter to the next. Because what happened the first time I tried it in the seed to sauce, and I think I caught this on video, but my camera was giving me some trouble. In the seed to sauce, it got caught in the A coming out of it and drugged the whole plate and messed it up. So that's the travel problem. That's not a torch height controller problem. All in all, I think the torch height controller did an amazing job. And where I could really watch it was when I had a long run. And that's like the side of the H going all the way up and down like this. And really on this side here. And I think I captured some video of that. If it turns out on the phone, I'll show it to you. I didn't have a screen, like one of those green screens like my eyes had over it. I could see it with my specialty goggles on, but I didn't have one in front of the camera on the phone. So I don't know if it captured it. I'm going to look at it. If it did, that's awesome. If it didn't, I might try and catch it again for you somewhere. Anyways, what I did see as it was going down here, as it touched the peaks, it was minimal distance. The torch head was minimal distance away from the peak. How can I describe it? Fingernails length, maybe. I mean, it was, and in some places I think it might have actually been touching a hair. So it was raising up, but then it would start to go down, and the torch would go down with it as the arc was changing. But then it'd get to the bottom, and it would be like a millimeter or two from the bottom, and then it started to come back up. So what I'm saying is, it went, as it was traveling this distance, and that's about an inch apart, you know, from peak to bottom, it's probably a ½ inch. So ½ inch, ½ inch, ½ inch, ½ inch. So during that travel, ½ inch to ½ inch, the change of, you know, I don't know how thick, how many, you can tell me what you think that is. That's probably a ½ inch travel, top to bottom from that. And you got to count for some of the warpage in the metal as it's heating up. So, because it was popping as I was working on it. It was popping. It was kind of funny. I had it clamped down in the very front, but that was pretty far away. Anyways, what I was saying was, it goes from like a fingernail's thickness to 2 millimeters thickness going down the side. Up and down, up and down, up and down. I think that's a fair amount to say it's safe. It didn't leave a bad cut at all. So ideally, you'd like it to stay exactly the same all the time. That's impossible. It can't do that, because it has to measure the arc and then adjust for that arc, and then measure the next arc and then adjust for that arc. And I don't know how many times a second. I think they said in their video how many times a second it's doing that. But then the motor still has to turn and move it up and down. And I have my Z height motor set to, sorry. Somebody loves riding their car. Actually, I kind of like hearing that sound as they go by the back road. It's kind of fun. But I had my Z height set to 300 millimeters a second. So I'm traveling 1600 millimeters a second down, but the Z height can only move up and down at 300 millimeters a second. So I could adjust that, not in the torch height controller, but in the CAD program. Geez, I got it all wrong. It's a CAM program. There's a place to adjust it in there. I don't know if that's wise to start messing with that, because that Z motor can only go up and down so fast. And all this is based on like how fast you're moving the whole thing. This is super thin metal. I would usually cut this at about 2400 millimeters a second. I slowed it down to 1600 millimeters per second for this cut. And I don't know if you could see it in the video. I'm going to try and attach it. The kerfs were getting a little thick because I slowed it down so much. On this one, I cut it at 2400 millimeters a second. And the kerfs a little smaller, not a lot smaller, which tells me that my torch head needs to be replaced as well. I probably have used it over so many hours. I don't have great humidity control in my air, so that's also a big part of the problem. Anyways, I'm rambling on. The real topic here is torch height controller. Am I happy with my purchase? Am I okay with my purchase? Am I sad with my purchase? In the end, huge thumbs up. It does exactly what it said it would do, and it's exactly why I bought it, so that I could do these big outlines around these things, and no matter which way the metal's warping, the torch is kind of keeping up with it. I'm super excited. I wanted to do corrugated. I really didn't have faith that it would do it until I saw JD's Garage do it on their video, and I'm like, okay, that's a possibility. And I don't know if they did this ½ inch corrugated or if they did bigger corrugated. Obviously, bigger corrugated would be easier than this small corrugated. But anyways, awesome. Excellent job, guys. Super happy with my purchase. I would purchase another one if I needed another one. Thanks a lot.